Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Another episode of The Business Side of Music. Joining us once again, it's been a few months, but we're glad to have you back in the studio. Al Bowman is here.
Thank you very much, Bob. Good to see you.
Always glad to have you. And you've got some things in the works these days that I think
of stuff.
We almost need to have a completely separate show just to talk about everything that you've got going on.
Yes.
And that voice you hear from across the hall here in the studio is none other than Freddie Salem. Now, those who go, Freddie Salem, why do I know that name? Let me give you just a little Reader's Digest version. He was the guitarist and one of the vocalists from 1977 to 1983 with the Outlaws.
Yes.
Now, the Outlaws, what I love about them, and when I did my research, I started to go, oh, yeah, this makes sense. It's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. They were a mix of country and rock elements in the early days, displaying the vocal harmony influences of such groups as Buffalo Springfield, the Byrds, Eagles, New Riders of the Purple Sage, and Poco. Mm-hmm. Their use of 3- and 4-part harmony set them apart from their contemporaries who usually relied on a single lead vocalist. The Outlaws' earliest well-known songs were There Goes Another Love Song and Green Grass and High Tide.
Indeed.
Both from their 75 debut album, Outlaws. And then their 1980, and I got to tell you, this is one of my favorite renditions.
Go ahead.
Their 1980 cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky from that titled album.
Did you like that?
I love it.
It was a platinum album.
And it was your biggest seller, biggest chart.
You know, it was. It was absolutely. And it took us 7 months to do it. And with a lot of different hiccups involved, as we mentioned earlier, with the production. We were at the record plant in Los Angeles for months. We had to switch producers. It cost upwards of $600,000-$700,000. But
wow.
Luckily, it recouped for Arista Records and Clive Davis.
Let's jump back, in fact, a little bit. When we talk about Clive Davis, I came across a quote that says, on the way to the stage for Leonard Skinner's set, lead vocalist Ronnie Van Zant said to Clive Davis, if you don't sign the Outlaws, you're the dumbest music person I've ever met, and I know you're not.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty famous story for sure.
Let's back up to the very beginning. How did you get started in the business?
Well, Bob, as a local teenager in beautiful Akron, Ohio, which had quite a vibrant music scene and still does till today. A lot of people came out of Akron, Ohio, and they're still coming out of there. Most recently, probably the Black Keys, Devo, Chrissy Hind, Joe Walsh, and people just keep popping out of the woodwork. I found out that 2 of Alice Cooper's original bandmates, Neil Smith, and the guitar player from the original band, went to school literally 1 block from where I grew up.
Wow.
Inner city. Michael Bruce. Maynard from Tool, the band Tool, born in Akron, Ohio. LeBron James, Akron, Ohio. Steph Curry, born in Akron, Ohio. I mean, I don't know whether it's the city, the water, or the will to get out of Akron, which creates some sort of, progress to do that. But I had a great time there growing up. A lot of music.
When did you start realizing that you wanted to play an instrument and be in a band?
pre-Beatles. See, here's the deal. My father, rest his soul, owned shot and beer bars around the rubber companies, Firestone, Goodrich, General Tire. Akron was the rubber capital of the world. 250,000 workers, 24-hour, around-the-clock shifts, 7 days a week. But the jukeboxes that he had in the bars, because of the demographics, all sorts of nationalities and races that worked at these. So there was everything in there from Hank Williams to B.B. King, to the Ronettes to Johnny Cash.
And everything in between.
And everything in between. I learned to love music from that variety that was on there. It was genuine, very, very genuine. But I didn't start playing till, of course, the four mop tops from Liverpool came over. And I think a lot of people my age from that era, that's when they started playing.
Yeah.
So I started banging on pots and pans with two sticks then, and that was that.
Were you self-taught as a musician, as a guitarist?
Yes, pretty much. I took lessons from a gentleman named Nuff Ray, who was primarily a jazz guitar player, but he taught me some of the reading fundamentals, so on and so forth. So, but no formal education, and couldn't afford to go to college. So when I was 18, I took my Les Paul guitar that my mom bought me for $200 and $500, and I moved to Los Angeles.
Wow.
And I lived on 10th and Vermont, right in the heart of things. And that's pretty much where I started. I was ready to go home after 6 months, and I had 1 can of Van de Kamp's in my rent was $185 a month. It was the Mexican barrio at that time. Now it's South Central. Al Bowman is the Pope of South Central now, the patriarch of South Central.
Oh, thanks.
But anyways, I was reading Variety, and it said, open auditions, SIR Studios, Sunset Boulevard, for the Chambers Brothers.
Wow.
Who was a Columbia act. The time has come today. Are you aware of them, Bob?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
That was our era.
Yeah.
So I took the bus and went down there.
With your guitar in tow.
And there were 100 guys in line. But I go, well, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to, totally out of money, this and that. I got to head back to Ohio and take over one of my dad's bars. Well, I was just ready to leave, but I saw the revolving door. One guy would walk in, and he'd come out in about 10 seconds. So they'd have him play a song, but he wasn't cutting it. Everybody had their guitars from the Guitar Institute or wherever they came from. I said, I got to grab this gig. So I was like one of the last 10 people in line. I went up and got it. I got the date.
Wow.
And left on tour. My first date with them in 1971 was the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Wow. That's a great story.
So they were my college into the business, and they were gold and platinum selling act in that day. And they toured Europe, went to Europe twice with them, recorded one album with them in New York, and it was turbulent because when a big group's career is going, kind of having a Spinal Tap moment, and that was happening. Everything was changing, and they were going down. We lived in a big house in Connecticut, this and that. Well, it was time to go after a couple years, and then there was no money and this and that, and so on and so forth. You know, the normal situation. But they were my college. I'm still in touch with Lester Chambers. And he's 82 now. He lives in the Bay Area. Willie, Pops has passed away. Willie's still living, and Joseph is still living. I'm not sure if there's good or bad blood there between the brothers, but yeah, Lester is still around. But I reminded him, I go, when you took me to LaGuardia, do you remember what you told me, Lester? He goes, what did I tell you? I said, you said, you will never amount to anything in this business. You just left the brothers and broke our heart.
Oh.
And I said, well, my heart is breaking too. And I said, it's a bittersweet moment for me, but time to move on now. And but yeah, I'm still in touch with them.
That's great.
Steve Hunter was in the band, who became a huge guitar icon. Peter Gabriel, Alice Cooper,
Lou Reed,
Rock and Roll Animal,
Yeah,
this
great
and
album.
that. We were all 18, 19 years old. Pretty amazing.
From there, was it a direct route to the Outlaws, or were there
No,
bumps in the road? Or
no, I went back to Los Angeles then, and luckily was able to start as a creative session player, and that was happening in those days. Now, few and far between, because all the artists play their own instruments. They don't want any session players.
yeah,
Unless you're a single artist of some kind. But there's the new movie or documentary out by Denny Tedesco, who made the Wrecking Crew
right.
film. And that's about when the Wrecking Crew started to dissipate around the 70s because everyone was starting to play their own instruments.
Did you get an opportunity to work with any of the Wrecking Crew?
I was telling Denny Tedesco the greatest story about his dad, Tommy.
Yeah.
The most celebrated session guitarist of all time. A friend of mine was in a production house for commercials. And he says, I want you to come down. I'll pay you $200 to play on a Sprite commercial. I said, whatever. I don't care if it's a Sprite commercial or whatever it is. So I went down, and this big Italian guy confronts me in the lobby and says, who are you? I said, well, he goes, what are you doing here? I didn't know. I'd never been to Western Studios before. That's where the Beach Boys, and that was their home, pretty much. The Beach Boys, Wrecking Crew. I said, well, I'm here for a session. What kind of session? I said, it's a Sprite commercial. What kind of session is that? Finally, he goes, where are you from? I go, I'm from Akron, Ohio. He goes, oh, I'm from the East Coast, too, the Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. And then he starts laughing, just the huge belly laugh and this and that. He goes, kid, you're going to do very, very well here. My name's Tommy Tedesco. And at 18, 19, 20 years, I'd heard the name and I'd read it in Downbeat magazine. I go, you're Tommy Tedesco. He goes, I was just playing around with you. That's how he was. And I told his son that, and he got the biggest kick out of that. Then I ran into him again at Columbia Studios. And he remembered me. I mean, I still, to this day, I don't know if there's anybody that compares with his works, Tommy Tedesco. I really don't know.
I think the Wrecking Crew in those days were almost untouchable. It was such an elite unit of musicians that could work so well. Mm-hmm. It was almost like they were interchangeable with each other.
Started in the 50s, and their tenure ended, started to, go away, mid-70s, I guess.
Yeah.
But while they were together, they were the elite session crew in Los Angeles, doing 90% of the product coming out, rock and roll product, but not counting films and this and that.
Well, when you think about the Monkees, the Mamas and the Papas, all of those groups, the Carpenters,
Beach Boys, Birds, the Fifth Dimension, on and on and on. We can't even sit here and...
The Wrecking Crew was basically everybody's band, wasn't it?
It really
they did
was.
So many records, and nobody knows.
No name.
That it was one band. It was always the same players on everybody's record.
No
back
name,
then.
no notoriety.
but at the same time, they could create such an individual sound that
Yes.
you didn't go,
Yes.
oh, that was the same that was on that. No.
Right. Right.
Now, how did you parlay that into what you're doing now with these film scores? Because you do read charts.
Well,
you do.
I do.
Did you teach yourself? Because people go to college for that.
Al, I'm like 180 in musician
years.
Kind of like dog years,
like
but
a
musician
dog.
years. Yeah.
So if you can't learn along the way,
That's funny.
get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn along the way. Now, I cannot read symphonic 200-page scores. I've got to call in my Berkeley guys, Juilliard guys for that, UCLA guys. They'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you reading Time magazine, okay? But it's all union related, doing the film stuff. And here again, it's no notoriety, no this, no that. It's another day at the office. Like the Wrecking Crew. They all went home to their families afterwards.
Yeah.
And so that's how I've evolved. Hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do, right? And I'm not mentioning any names, but Al knows West Hollywood, around the whiskey, around the rainbow, the musicians we see from the 80s that didn't didn't learn their art. The 80s were, listen, forget about the days of wine and roses. It was the days of lines and noses. And they didn't, you don't plan, when you're young, you don't plan for the future. You think the ride is never going to end.
Right.
Actually, and it happens to everybody.
Yep.
That was such an abrupt end, too, because grunge rock emerged out of literally nowhere.
When I saw on the Whiskey Marquee, Pearl Jam tonight, it was over.
Yeah.
That was the end of the 80s hair metal era. But when I saw that, I go, well, there goes that now. Because I knew the producer for Pearl Jam, Brendan Ryan. He's still very prevalent in the business, but I knew he produced that, and he says, it's going to create a whole new dimension. Yeah, so anyways.
We're going to take a break, get a word in for one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more of this very interesting conversation with Freddie Salem and Al Bowman.
Hey, it's Chris Czynszak with Decibel Geek and Rockin' Pod Expo, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
When you have a Korg synth at your fingertips, the possibilities are endless. Be it digital, analog modeling, altered FM, wave sequencing, or the multi-engine synth, Korg gives you easy access to a variety of features to help you get the perfect sounds quickly. Whether you're a professional musician or just starting out, Korg truly has a synthesizer to help you express yourself. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products to create new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
Hey, this is Jack Sharkey, host of Between the Notes. Take a break from all the turmoil in the world and join us each week as we explore the magic, mystery, and beauty of music. Between the Notes, a podcast dedicated to everything music, available everywhere you get your podcasts.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio, Al Bowman, who's sitting next to me. Al, always good to have you.
Thank you very much. I love the show. I listened to your 250th episode. That was fabulous. And now Becky Judd told me that Mike Curb is a regular listener.
Oh, very good.
Isn't that great?
We got another one.
Yeah.
And then sitting across the table from us is Freddie Salem, who, along with all your other notoriety, you were one of the guitarists and vocalists in the group The Outlaws from 1977
Yes.
to 1983.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, I was in Los Angeles, and but in the interim, I'd been on the road I produced a couple things. I'd been on the road. I went out with Jesse Colin Young, went out with Roberta Flack for fill-in dates, so on and so forth. But I was in the studio recording some original material, and for myself. hoping to get some sort of record deal from it. And a gentleman, a friend and associate, just a southern gentleman out of Atlanta at the time, knew the Outlaws management. His name was Sims Hines, and he was with Concerts West.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Jerry Weintraub's company. And till this day, I talk to him. He works for a company that manages huge Coliseum facilities, so on and so forth. But he had forwarded a tape to Charlie Brusco, who was the Outlaws manager at the time. And I didn't really think much of it, so on and so forth. But Charlie Brusco introduced me to Eric Kronfeld, a prominent New York attorney. They saw something in my little demo tape, which cost whatever. I was sneaking into Cherokee and the record plant and this and that late at night and give the engineer $100 and do some work. Well, that's over too. All that's over with. But anyways, that's how it kind of developed. But I didn't know it was going to develop that way. So Charlie came to Los Angeles. The Outlaws were playing a few dates here and there. One of them was Long Beach Arena. And then he invited me to go. Anyways, so I went with them. And to the Long Beach Arena. They were opening for Boston, who was, the album had just come out, the first album, which, as we know, probably sold 10 million out of the box at the time. But anyways, that's where I first met the Outlaws. But I noticed something, due to the difference in genre, that Boston's crowd was a totally different crowd than the Outlaws. And I was watching, and because I was in the audience. I was sitting in the 5th or 6th row. They gave me a ticket. So I was sitting, I was just watching. Well, Long Beach Arena sold out, this and that, but kind of a mixed reaction from the audience on the out. They were there to see Boston, which was the new supergroup of the world.
At that time, yeah.
At the time, that first album, I still listen to it, the production, the songs. Anyways, so that ended, and they went on their way, and I went on my way. And about a year later, I received a call from the tour manager, and he said, the guys want to fly you down to Tampa. I go, oh, that'd be a nice vacation. Get out of here for a while. They go, no. They want you to come and audition. I go, well, I love the band. I love the guys. Anyways, so I went down. We jammed for about 2-3 hours, and would you be interested in joining? Now, I had no idea that I would be replacing somebody in the band, because I didn't know the band that well. I spent most of my time with Billy and Huey.
Were they 3 guitars at that time?
They were, but the third guitarist was more of a rhythm player, and that he was replaced, and they put me in. My first gig with them was Boston Gardens, opening for Steve Miller, and that was after about 3 days rehearsal.
Yeah.
But as we went, I felt the difference between those albums and the live was like 2 different bands. And I went to them. I said, we got to step this up a little bit. I go, your early album, my first album was Bring It Back Alive, the double live album. By then, I had upgraded the amplifiers from Fenders and Peavies to Marshalls.
Yeah.
I go, Huey, who's your favorite guitar player? He said, Jimi Hendrix. I go, let's go. Let's become a major headlining Coliseum band and sell some product. That's what we did on that live album. It was gold within 2 weeks. the velocity had been raised, and that was the schematic from there going on. Like Ghost Riders was a heavier sounding record. Ron Nevison produced that. Playing to Win was a British rock producer, Mutt Lange.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we kind of got away from the roots producers. And when we didn't, it didn't work. Eye of the Storm was a roots producer. Nothing against the roots producer, of course. Wonderful talents. The Tom Dowds, Johnny Sandlins, those guys, wonderful. But I felt we had to take it into another direction. And they wanted to do it. And so Eye of the Storm came out after the live, and a weird thing started happening. We started to create a Grateful Dead type following, no matter how the record did or if even there was one out. Our crowds kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
But that's a good thing.
Yes. It's a very, very stable thing. The Dead still sells out Soldiers Field or Red Rocks 4 nights in a row, hundreds of thousands of people. And but we weren't like the Dead, but it was, Eye of the Storm was one of our least selling albums. But we headlined 2 nights at the Spectrum in Philly, Madison Square Garden sold out, New Haven Coliseum sold all these bigger arenas out without a hit album. It was just a live show that we had.
Were you a band that played to a set list, or were you a jam band, or were you kind of a combination of the both?
Set list, but heavy jam. We would follow the set list, start with Hurry Sundown or Devil's Road, and we would jam. We would jam. Huey would get out there. Huey and Billy were kind of living their dream. From the country rock, we're still a southern rock band, hard-edged. We're hard-edged.
Right.
But originally they were kind of a country rock band in the vein of the Pure Prairie Leagues and the Firefalls and this and that, which was nothing wrong with that, but we got our legs.
You turned up the volume.
I said, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then Mutt Lange came in, first British producer. Perfect. He hadn't gotten his legs yet as a producer, but you could see his brilliance. And then we went on from there, from Playing to Win. Then the Ghost Riders, and the crowds just kept getting bigger and bigger overseas, in the States. 110,000 people at the JFK Stadium for the Roundup, which we headlined. It was a phenomenon like the Dead, and we played with the Dead 2 or 3 times. But that's what it was. And what we sell, probably about 12 million albums worldwide over the period of that time. So not bad. Not bad for a bunch of...
I was going to say 12 million is nothing to sneeze at.
Not bad for a bunch of drunk kids.
Well, and the Southern rock scene was a different demographic. It was almost a regional thing to begin with. When you think about the bands that were considered Southern rock, obviously the Outlaws, Leonard Skinner, Marshall Tucker, Charlie Daniels, Molly Hatchet, those types of bands.
Yeah.
But you were creating a sound that was unlike anything else out there.
That's what we tried to do. I said, let's just break ourselves away, and that's how the reviews were. Yeah, we stood alone musically as far as that went, and then our stage production, and that's why we were successful in the touring aspect. It was tough to sell an album for us because of the past. Well, here, the first album, Green Grass and High Tide, which is still number 80 in the charts as far as classic rock airplay, went gold a year or 2 years after the live album, which was the heavier version.
Right.
One of our last tours, if you want to hear this, was called the Blackout Tour. And it was with Black Sabbath. It was Black Sabbath and the Outlaws.
Who came up with that, Bill?
And it worked. It was Ronnie James Dio's Black Sabbath.
Oh, okay.
And it worked. There was some turbulence in the audience between the two, but it worked. It worked. We did 30 Coliseums, and somehow it worked. We came out blazing. You know, we didn't come out and do...
There's some incredible videos on YouTube of the Outlaws, some older vintage stuff.
Right.
Amazing stuff, like especially like the 30-minute version of that song. Is it Greengrass?
Greengrass.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I noticed too when I started looking at some of those YouTube videos of the Outlaws. This isn't a little 5-minute, take. You better sit back, pour yourself a cold one, and relax and enjoy this.
Right. Well, a different day. But, I think if, let's say if all came around, it would work today. The Southern rock scene's pretty vibrant today with your newer acts that are out, like Blackberry Smoke and so on and so forth. There's some...
But you guys laid the groundwork.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
I don't think you... as a band, got enough credit for what you guys actually accomplished.
They inspired an entire genre of music.
We should have had, for some reason, with the airplay we got from these albums, we got heavy airplay. It didn't seem like Arista was ready could deliver at the time.
Do you think it was just maybe Arista didn't know what to do with you?
Well, I think the Outlaws were one of the first 2 acts he ever signed to Arista. I think so, yeah. I don't think they had the... Clive, as you know, one of the greatest in the world as far as record guys, I think he was more pop-oriented in his selections, more mainstream. But he did sign the Dead and gave them their first hit, Touch of Grey.
Well, maybe it was just you didn't fit in his wheelhouse.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But we should have had double platinum records because you had, Molly Hatchet, who had just come out. They were on CBS, Epic, I believe, CBS. They were selling platinum and double platinum records with not the airplay we had.
Yeah.
So there's something missing from...
It just didn't translate.
Correct. Yeah, it just didn't. But
isn't there a DVD set out with some of these concerts? Didn't they come out with?
MIG out of Hanover released a couple years ago the Outlaws Unleashed in Germany, which was filmed and recorded at Lorelei outside of Frankfurt, and on the show was Thin Lizzy and 38 Special. And
I'd love to see that, man.
It's a beautiful natural amphitheater, and over to the right of the stage is the Rhine. It looks like a tapestry. It's the Rhine River Valley. Just the most beautiful place. Well, the unfortunate thing was the technology then for the recording and the filming was NA.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's out, and it sold quite a few. It's a nice package. I did the liner notes and everything. But MIG has that out over in Hanover. Nice people, wonderful. But I don't think I've seen any the remaining members have seen any money from that yet. But anyways, that's show business, right?
And don't be fooled by these new incarnations that call themselves the Outlaws, because they should be called the Trainwreck Outlaws.
Well, there's, with all due respect, there is. It just so happens the two of the guy that I replaced, Henry Paul, a very talented guy, I actually did better on his own than he did with the Outlaw. He had Black Hawk.
Right.
And he has now a couple solo projects, and now he has he and Monty, the original drummer, he was removed too from the Outlaws, not because of anything. I didn't know what was happening, but they have a version of the Outlaws out now, and seem to be working. They seem to be working quite a bit.
We're going to take another break, get another word in for another one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Freddie Salem and Al Bowman.
Hey, this is Clint from Stone Senate, and you are listening to The Business Side of Music with Mr. Bob Bender.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting across the table from me, Freddie Salem from the Outlaws and many, many other things. And sitting next to me, a good friend, and I'm always glad he's in the studio, Al Bowman.
And you know, Bob, maybe your listeners don't know it, but since 2009, there's an organization called the Rock Gods Hall of Fame, not to be confused with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It's run by a woman named Cynthia Landine. It's a nonprofit 501c3. She holds yearly events, and this year the event is July 21st at Bowie's in downtown Nashville. You, sir, are an inductee.
I have been told that. I am forever grateful. Thank you.
I think it's a really well-deserved honor for all your years in. And then
Tremendous.
Doing things like this, the business side of music, is a great service to people like Freddie Salem, who, you know...
Al's going to induct you.
I am. And ultimately... You know, having an honor like that is a very, very good way to leave your mark when you're gone.
Well, thank you. That means the world to me. It really does.
And we've got so many good people at this event. We're inducting Pat Travers, who's going to perform. And I think we have all the original members of Vanilla Fudge.
Except for Tim Bogart, passed, unfortunately. But he's getting
He's going to get a posthumous award.
And then I'll be playing with the Rock Gods Band.
Yeah, they're doing an all-star jam.
But no, we'll be opening the show with a blistering version of Statesboro Blues, Allman Brothers. Then we'll start the inductions. Mike Curb first, Todd Sharp, and then Felix Cavalier will come up from the Rascals.
Very nice.
How do you like that one?
And we'll prod him to do 2 songs with us, Beautiful Morning and Good Lovin', hopefully. He's such a beautiful guy. So it's going to be a fun night.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
And then
the end, have a really good decor in there. We're going to set it up with the black and red. And Freddie wants me to bring in gargoyles, so it gives the
Well, he wanted to set it up with white linens and flutes.
I wanted nice. I wanted to have an ambiance, but he's like, "Yeah, you're dealing with rockers. Go black and red.
Well,
bring in gargoyles."
The club is a rock club, the premier rock club. I mean,
I just can't get rid of that Hollywood glitz that's in my soul.
Well, no, your event, different.
Yeah.
Different, totally different. But it's going to be a wonderful event. And I can't even begin to remember the other 8 or 10 inductees. I know the bands, this and that, Steve Popovich, Todd Sharp, the touring and session guitarist for Rod Stewart, Hall & Oates. Here's the beauty of it, Bob, is the people that were inducted live in Nashville.
Yeah. Everybody's moving here.
They're not flown in from L.A.
They're going to have to spend a bunch of money on travel.
No, there's so much here.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that have moved here from Los Angeles and Vegas and everywhere else. It's just amazing.
Which brings up an interesting point, because Nashville, the stigma that follows Nashville with people from outside of here is that this is strictly a country music place, and it simply is not.
No.
This is a classic rock town.
It hasn't
unlike
been,
any I've ever seen. All you got to do is walk down Broadway, and I don't hear any country. I'm hearing Van Halen. I'm hearing Motley Crue.
Yeah.
I'm hearing
always
Heart
been
and
that
Zeppelin
way.
and AC/DC coming from both sides of the street.
Yeah.
So it's more classic rock than I think it is country. I think country might be based here as far as the management companies and all that.
I think country is your main component, but Nashville has
It's
been
underrated for its rock and roll thing.
Well, I was going to say the music scene in Nashville has grown so much from being just a country music town or even a bluegrass town that the rock and roll environment is firmly entrenched here now. And I think this is a great place to hold this show, the Rock Gods Hall of Fame. And then you're also going to have something set up inside the venue to where all of the past recipients' awards are going to be on the wall.
Well, this was something we discussed the other day, and this was Cynthia's idea.
Can we talk about that?
Sure. Cynthia saw this wall space, and she said, what if we got a duplicate award of every recipient there's ever been and put them up on the wall here? And I said, well, you have to screw them in because people would be wanting to steal those.
That. Michelle, the owner,
she loved it. And I'm thinking as a tourist thing for people to go upstairs to take a picture with their favorite rock icon who's been inducted already, because I don't know if you remember, I showed you the inductee list. You knew about half of them.
Yeah.
He already knew like half the people that already
Pretty
been inducted.
extensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, some legends in the industry.
Yeah. And so what a great way to decorate a room with uniform platinum records with text plates with your favorite star. And then a great way to promote is people go, let me take a picture with the Pat Travers thing. And I'm sure they'll be lining up for the Bob Bender one as well.
I'm sure that line will be out the door.
And but I did want to ask Freddie something here, because now Freddie and I have known each other for over a decade now, and he's participated in the Los Angeles Music Awards multiple times, played shows, was a recipient. But in 2016, when I was inducted to the Rock Gods Hall of Fame, so was he. And in that class was Michael Anthony from
Van Halen.
Yeah. And then Armato from REO Speedwagon.
Yes.
He was
the guy from Megadeth.
Megadeth, Jeff Young. And so, Freddie and I, from then on, had built a really good relationship. And then I'm aware of what he does. And he's very humble about this, but Freddie works with really big movie stars on huge, huge music projects as a score guitarist. Like he'll do a master session with like the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra and be the only guitarist. Isn't that true?
Well, Al, let's put this into perspective. I call Al the original Hollywood Carnival Barker. And I've called him that for 10 years.
Yeah, well,
it's not a slanderous remark. But
we all have a little P.T. Barnum in us.
I do not work with big movie stars. I work with the score masters and the producers. Rarely
you smoked a cigarette with Colin Farrell.
Well, that's on the lot. That's I'll be sitting there having a smoke, and they'll walk up and go, "Do you have a smoke I can borrow? Could you mind if I sit?" It's another day at the office for these guys. I've seen Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman in their Pirates outfits, and who came and sat and asked me for 2 cigarettes, okay? And it's another day at the office. A person who wasn't used to being in that environment on a Warner's lot or Universal lot would freak out. Oh, my God, you're... Well, my conversation with Johnny Depp was, hey, I saw you guys at the Roxy the other night. The Hollywood Vampires played the Roxy, and I was there. I went up. In fact, it was after your award show at the Whiskey.
That's right. I remember that.
I said, the Vampires...
Split the crowd.
So I went to the show. He goes, you were there? See, it's like another day at the office. these guys. It's all hype and news and this. They're working.
Yeah, he's deflecting. How many movie scores have you worked on?
I was going to say, let's talk about that. How many
That is
songs?
an amazing job that he has, because he's got to be union and all that.
I want to straighten this out. I'm very, very, no gray area. I do not work with stars.
All right.
Okay, we've got that settled.
Okay, but we've worked on numerous under NDA because we get no recognition. A lot of them I won't do. I'll just contract the guys. What kind of score is it? It's a bluegrass score. I go into my Rolodex. I get this guy, the mandolin player, the banjo player, the steel player, and the washboard guy, and the guy who plays the Jew's harp. Okay, and then I'll go. I've got 40 guys that work for me. What have we done? We've done Dunkirk. We did one of the Top Guns. Numerous films, but we don't know that we're doing because you're under NDA.
Right.
No leaks. They don't want any. How many times in the past have you seen a movie come out online or something, but before it was released, from somebody pirating that film involved, one of the technicians or whatever? So it's kind of a from what I've been through in my life, it's not too glorious. But is it rewarding? It's fun.
Pays well.
It pays well, being union, and plus working in that division, film and television.
But I was going to ask you, do you love doing it?
Yes.
Does it allow a sense of creativity?
No.
No.
Rarely.
Really?
Rarely. Everything is carved in stone when you walk in, and that's
well, do they tell you, Freddie, you have to use this particular guitar tone?
On the main charts, carved in stone. If they want something changed, the Pro Tools guys change it. The scoring guy changes it. But if they call you in for a coloration, then you can create. But it's never full ensemble. It's, Freddie, we need you for a coloration session. And you come in, do this, do that, to see if you can do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No. They don't want no jamming. But they don't want no jamming at all. The Pro Tools score screens will come up, red notes. And then when you're done, they go, Jonathan, stay where you're at, play along, and they get rid of those red notes where you might have stretched beyond the box.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's another day at the office.
Then my guys go to Tarzana and Winnetka and over to North Hollywood. They go home to the soccer van and 2 kids.
Yeah.
It's a gig, and that's what it was with a lot of those Wrecking Crew guys, too. Wives, children, family, go home, but piles of money. They were multimillionaires back in the 60s.
How can people follow you today? How can they get a hold of you? How can they see what Freddie Salem's doing?
Well, hey, I'm pretty, I'm not a social media.
Got a website, FreddieSalem.com.
No, it's not. See, it's Freddie-Salem.com, but all my information is on Facebook. They can reach me. My website's on there, this and that. I think I have 3 different pages, 6,000 followers or whatever, but a lot of people contact me through that. I'm not on Twitter or this or any of those, but I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. That's it. I was telling Al that a wonderful A&R guy from Los Angeles just contacted me through Facebook, Tom Zutat, who signed Guns N' Roses, a small act that sold
a few
$40 million on their first album. But he just contacted me. He's in Chattanooga. I'm going to give him a call today. But anyways, that's about it. But my new album, I have a new project, Freddie Salem and Lone Wolf.
It's incredible.
Which I had to reboot because I was in the midst when the COVID came. And everything hit the skids. So I had to update a little bit, this and that.
How can people get a copy of that?
Well, it's not out.
Not out yet?
No,
so when's it going to come out?
I put it in Curb's hands. He has it.
Okay.
I wanted Curb to hear it first because I coined a new phrase for this, Appalachian dirt rock. I like it.
It's heavy-handed Americana Southern rock, but hard.
Yeah, hard, heavy. Yeah, swamp rock, just a The Bayou sounding guitar, man.
But there's roots. There's roots there. But
very, very good.
It's not a metal album, but it's unlike anything you might hear.
It's fantastic.
I think
it's one of my favorites. I've listened to it about 8 times.
Oh, thanks, Al.
Yeah,
that
I
son
dig
of a gun, I'm telling you. Well, the old gray mare ain't what it used to be. So, anyways.
None of us are.
Yeah, you guys are. You're doing good.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Al, as well.
You got it, man. We're looking forward to see you, Bob, July 21st at Bowie's Rock Gods Hall of Fame. RockGodsHallOfFame.com.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks again, Bob.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.